like it.
It's good.
It's smooth.
Recording in progress.
Nice, Gabe. Good choice.
Thank you very much.
Got a good flow to it. Getting us in the right mood here.
Yeah, it was a little bit, hectic trying to find that one, but there you are.
All right, how we doing, Chris?
Good. Tired.
Yeah.
I drank one of those little baby Red Bulls before I got here.
There you go. Nothing like a baby Red Bull.
My doctor says I shouldn't be drinking those.
Just got to make sure you're taking the baby aspirin with it and you're all good.
She's like, you drink Red Bulls like a 20-year-old college student.
That's not good.
No.
You're not old, but you ain't a young buck anymore
but,
you were.
It's a special occasion.
Yeah.
It's the meeting after the meeting.
Let's get into it. This is the meeting after the meeting.
I'm Chris.
And I'm John.
Welcome.
So this is our third episode. We've got a couple down, and I think I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty good about the show. I'm feeling great about our guest tonight. He's
wild.
He's one of a kind. He comes from a little bit of a different background, more of a country background. So
Eastern Shore. It's Eastern Shore's not
I
country.
think the term he uses is shore Billy.
Sure.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. We got a great show. We got a guest tonight. We're gonna run through the 3 W's with him. We got a great topic we're gonna talk about. We got that topic relates somewhat to his sobriety. We've got a great newcomer tip of the week, and then we're gonna do another fun sketch for you.
Good. So good.
It should be interesting.
Yeah.
So why don't we
Let's bring him in.
let's kick it off. Bring in our guest. Our guest tonight is Matt W. from Rockville, Maryland. Matt, come on in.
Man, he's tall.
He is a tall. We had to change the mic around for him. Get those headphones on there. There he is.
How you doing, fellas?
We good?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Grateful to be here.
Yeah. We're glad to have you.
It's very exciting.
Why are you throwing? Why are you throwing effects on his bike?
I didn't need to do that.
I don't know what's going on.
You know what that reminds me of? Old School. I just saw that movie. You remember Old School when Will Ferrell takes the dart in the neck and he's like, "You're crazy,
Crazy, man.
Oh, we lost it.
There you go.
We lost it.
Thanks, Gabe. It was a good intro there, Gabe. Appreciate it.
Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. This is fantastic. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So,
How are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling good. I'm a little tired myself. I also drank a baby Red Bull, before I came in.
What's that? 8.4 ounce.
8.4 ounce. Yeah.
Well, 8.
It's like a shot for us.
Yeah.
Like the equivalent of a shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's my only vice these days.
there's no
caffeine.
all-nighters anymore.
No.
Not for us.
No. Not even close.
Yeah.
Past 10 is about all I got in
You
me.
going down when that baby goes down.
Oh, God willing, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we are super excited to have you. Why don't we get into what we like to call the stats?
Sure.
And just tell us, your basic details about your sobriety.
Okay. Well, my sobriety date is October 17th, 2016. I have a sponsor. He knows he's my sponsor, even though I don't call him as regularly as I should. And I sponsor other guys in the program.
You got a home group?
I do have a home group. My home group is Haven at Last Group. Meets Thursday night, 8:30.
Good. 7:30. 7:30.
7:30. My apologies. Best meeting of the week, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's a big meeting. It's a lot of good energy, a lot of good sobriety, a lot of newcomers. It's a good mix across the board. It's a fun place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And you got, my math is right, 6 years.
6 years. Yep.
Awesome. And you've lived in this area those whole 6 years?
Yes, I've lived here my whole 6 years. I got sober here. I I got sober in downtown DC. I live downtown DC.
Okay.
For the first 3.5 years of my sobriety, 3.5, 4 years. And then I had the pleasure of moving out here close to, you and Chris and Justin and a few other guys. And, my program has benefited greatly from that. I mean, connecting in DC it's not easy, especially when you're not in that same, young professional field. I had a little different background, like you said in the intro. I was a little more country, so I think I fit in a little better out here in the burbs.
Young and professional is not any two words that I would use to describe you.
Absolutely not. Never.
Speaking of a little bit of a different background, the first thing we love to do is to get into the 3 W's, and those W's are what you were like, what happened, and what you were like now. So why don't we just get right into it? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were like?
Sure. So, I mean, like you said in the intro, I grew up on the Eastern Shore, close to the beach, but, a little inland. So I grew up on a farm, big farm community. Lots of cousins, uncles.
And your family's still there, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What kind of farm was it?
Watermelon farm. Watermelons and chickens.
That's great.
My son loves watermelon.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
I mean, are you still growing watermelons?
I have my side of the family doesn't have anything to do with that part of the farm.
Okay.
It's just growing up in that community. That's what you did in the summers. You threw watermelons. You loaded pickup trucks with watermelons and you drove them to the auction block and
Got strong out there.
yeah,
loading trucks.
Some people did. I didn't. I was skinny. I was skinny as a rail. Growing up,
How tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
Yes,
Good Lord.
Yeah. And, growing up, I was always very tall, but I was also very skinny and very awkward. If you can imagine a 6 foot fifth grader that weighed 110 pounds, I didn't have that athletic ability. I didn't have, everything you would think that a 6'7" man would have that, I get the question all the time.
There's no D1 scholarship.
No D1. No.
In your future.
No, I didn't even start my senior year in basketball. It was
How many times have people asked you if you played basketball, though? I mean,
every day, at least twice a day.
Still.
Yeah. To this day, yeah. And, and that's kind of where the drinking stemmed from. Like I said, I grew up with this huge family. My father was an alcoholic. He passed away at 52 from this disease. All of my uncles were alcoholics. They've all since passed. And it was a very normal thing. And now that I have some sober time, growing up, it was never, oh, Dad's an alcoholic or Uncle Alan's an alcoholic. It was always, my dad was a fantastic father. He coached every single one of my little league teams. He was involved in my life. He was never violent. He was actually like the life of the party. He was a fun-loving guy. And the same with my uncles. But they just, they drank to excess daily. And it ended up, causing them to pass on. And like I said, growing up, we didn't know what alcoholism looked like. And I do now. Some people in my family still don't think,
Yeah.
they just like to party or whatnot. But to
Jury's
me,
still out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I didn't have that athletic ability. And then in this little town, it was kind of like that Friday Night Lights vibe of, you played football on Friday night. And if you did, you were cool. And if you didn't, you didn't fit in. And I didn't play football, but what I did have was access to a lot of farmland and alcohol. So that quickly became my identity of
Field parties.
Field parties after the football game and on Saturdays. And, Matt was the fun guy. Matt was the guy that always had the alcohol. And for, up into college, that was my identity. No real consequences to say. I mean, I didn't graduate college. I was there for quite a number of years with not a lot to show for it, except for
How many credits did you get?
Zero.
Zero
Credits. I actually would attend other classes that I wasn't enrolled in and sit in there and drink alcohol. And,
You didn't get any credits?
No.
None. How many years did you go?
almost 3 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's actually...
That's almost more impressive than
quite a feat.
getting. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I will say that.
It
I have
sounds
a
like
lot
it.
of stories. Like I said, I would go to other classes, that I wasn't even enrolled in. That's how it's been my days. And my parents weren't super thrilled with that outcome. As my sister was, she graduated top of her class and all this stuff, and went on to New York City for bigger and better things. And here I was, flunking out of college and moving back home, and that's kind of what landed me on my career path. And looking back on it, I'm grateful. I definitely took the long way around. I took a summer job at a place called JR's Ribs, and I met these group of guys who did what I like to do. It was acceptable. I mean, this is early 2000s. Kitchen Confidential had just come out, Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
So it was that rock star cook's lifestyle that became really popular, and that's kind of what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the lifestyle.
Which pairs well with drinking,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
to use it.
I fell in love with the
cooking term.
lifestyle before I fell in love with food and the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
The lifestyle was you drink while you work, and then you hang out with all the waitresses and waiters, and you drink all night, and then the next morning you all have different stories to tell, where you woke up and things like that.
That's right.
And that's what I fell in love with first. And then following that, the passion for cooking, soon followed. But by that time, mid 2005, I was a daily drinker at that time. On paper, my life looked fantastic. And I always talk about this. It's like I had a house at the beach. I was running a restaurant called Liquid Assets. We were winning awards after award. I had a white Cadillac. I was married. I had a pit bull.
White cat.
A big white Coupe de Ville Cadillac with just empty fireballs underneath the seat,
Banging around.
just banging around, a lot of fun. And, I would drink all day, and I would come home and I would continue to drink by myself in the garage. And I always talk about this. Even years into sobriety, I still was mad at my ex-wife. I didn't understand why that relationship didn't work out. I slept in the garage most nights on the concrete floor.
Strange.
Just a pile of empty beer cans and,
What was wrong with her?
a lot. A lot was wrong with her, and she couldn't see what I saw.
Potential.
Potential, yeah. And that my drinking was a progressive thing, like a lot of people's drinking is, and I was always a big. You hear a lot about the geographical change, and when I was in Ocean City, I remember sitting down with the owner of the restaurant, and I remember having a conversation with him and saying, I'm drinking a little too much. I need to grow up a little bit. I need to mature. I need to go somewhere where I have a little more structure. And he's like, let's do it. So I packed everything I owned and I moved to New York City. And I think we all...
What was the thought behind that?
The thought behind that was, I'll be in a very structured environment, limited funds, kind of on my own type thing. And
But in New York City.
But in New York City. And it went off the rails very fast, very, very fast. I couldn't afford to pay my rent. I had an apartment with no windows. It was a perfect little den to just
Alcoholism.
Just alcohol.
Budding alcoholic.
Lonely alcoholism. And every dime, every little bit of money I had went right to alcohol and other activities.
Drugs.
Drugs around New York City, yeah. Drugs are a part of my story, but at the end of the day, it always started with a drink and it always ended with a drink. Yeah. It was never the opposite.
I love that saying. I always say that. Started the night with drinking. Mm-hmm. I ended the night with drinking, but there was a lot in between.
A lot in between. A lot in between, And New York got dark. I mean, there was moments in New York, I worked for some of the best chefs in the world. I worked at some of the best restaurants in the world. But near the end of it, I became very unhireable. I couldn't hold a job.
But that ego, and I'm familiar with it because, I got sober when I was 30. I mean, I had a life before I got here. I had some success, in my field. I was good. I could get these amazing jobs. I had, accolades. People were like, "You're me." That it just makes it harder.
It does,
because you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. You're buying your own lies. You know what I mean? And it's so hard to you really need to get your ass whooped.
Yeah.
Before you humble yourself. I mean, it really takes a beating.
Yeah, and in the kitchen, I mean, chefs' egos are notoriously just as bad. You know.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was going to be this very structured lifestyle, you know, where we would work really hard and there would be no alcohol and drugs in the kitchen. And I couldn't be further from the truth, no matter how nice the restaurant was, you know. There was always the dishwasher that had something you needed. Or,
Oh yeah.
You know.
It's never far.
And sometimes I would resort to drinking the cooking wine on the line, you know, because by this time in my drinking, you know, if I went a certain amount of time without drinking, I would start shaking. I would get the anxiety. I would have panic attacks, and the only way I could get through was, you know, drinking cooking wine.
I mean, the pressure is unreal.
The pressure
in those
was
situations.
intense. Yeah, I mean, we were the first place we won a Michelin star. We were cooking at the James Beard House, you know, and we were a small restaurant, Portuguese, Italian restaurant. And I mean, the pressure was, you know, we didn't have like a big cast in the kitchen. So I would resort to taking cooking wine and putting it in containers and labeling it fish broth and storing it in the walk-in so nobody would drink it. And I would go in and drink it.
I mean, I would think that if people saw you drinking fish broth, that might be more weird than if they just thought it was cooking wine.
Probably. Most likely. I never thought of it that way. You know? Somebody comes walking in and there I am just drinking fish broth.
Hey, Matt's in there drinking
Probably
fish
been
broth
like, it's a
again.
health thing. It's a real healthy thing.
If you took one look at me, you would know that it was not a health thing. I mean, I was 6'7". I was 29 years old, 6'7", 140 pounds. And I normally was wearing a bandana. I look like somebody, if you're walking down the
I
street
wish
in
we had
Manhattan.
pictures from people back in the day.
We actually, when we first started talking about doing this
We need to
meeting and
start doing
podcast,
that.
we talked about getting some early pictures of
I
people
have some.
and putting them up on the screen to kind of
We
give
need to do that.
give better context.
Yeah, we need, if it's available.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a picture of me cooking at the James Beard House in front of 50 of the world's best chefs and food critics. And I'm in a dishwashing jacket, cooking jacket, and a green bandana, and I'm blacked out. I hadn't slept.
You don't even remember.
No
I don't
recollection.
remember. I gave a speech after the dinner in front of all these people. I have pictures, but I have no recollection of.
Oh my
I remember
God.
showing up, and I remember the maitre d' at the James Beard House looking at us like, "What are these homeless people doing here?" And we had just won a Michelin star, and you know that's just how it went.
So,
So let's, with that being said, let's kind of move it on a little bit and talk about what happened. What was it that kind of?
I ended up, you know, I ended up in Lancaster. I ended up, you know, another geographical change, and I ended up homeless once again and being kicked out of an apartment. And I had tracked a girl down on Facebook who I grew up with, and she was living in the DC area, and I knew she was
do you want to use a different word than tracked? I mean,
stalked,
okay, yeah.
looking for a warm place to sleep. We grew up together, so we'd known each other. And I knew she was doing well. You know, we went to the same college. We had different paths in college, obviously. And it wasn't any ill will. I wasn't trying to like scam her necessarily, but I was kind of down on my luck, and I was single and she was single. So we ended up meeting in DC, and we went out to dinner that night before. And she always says this. We met at a bar when I first got off the Amtrak train, and we sit down at this bar and we start ordering drink. And she tried to keep up with me drink for drink. She had no idea. We hadn't seen each other in 15 years. And she ended up throwing up that night. And she goes, "What is going on with this guy? He just won't stop drinking whiskey. Like it's
And you were
water."
just getting even.
I was fine. I had a half a pint on the train on the way in. And we started dating, and, you know, I moved in with her
Quickly.
very quickly.
Now, did she know you were homeless pretty much? And
No, I mean, I would drop little hints here and there, but she would make comments like, "Don't we need to go back to Lancaster to get your stuff?" And little did she know that I didn't have any stuff.
You're like, no.
And what stuff I did have that I did leave behind was
Trash.
Been trashed by the county sheriffs or whoever took over that apartment.
They came in and fumigated,
Yeah,
took care of it for you.
it was a pretty bad apartment. It was like an 1,100 square foot apartment with just a mattress in the whole place.
yes,
So, and you know, it didn't take long for her to kind of figure out what was going on with me. You know, she voiced her concerns. She voiced her concerns with my family.
I mean, she's pretty sharp.
She's very sharp. She's very sharp. She's very smart, and she's pretty no nonsense too. We talked about different things, and some circumstances popped up. I had some injuries. I was taken to the hospital, and the nurse had to sedate me because I was going through alcohol withdrawal, and things like that started to happen to where she's like, maybe this is a little more serious than what we think. And I had an intervention. I guess it was 2014. It was Christmas, and I did not want to go to AA. That was the last thing, and that was the first thing out of my mouth in the intervention was, I'm not doing AA. That place is weird. I remember there was one AA meeting in the town I grew up in, and it was, the same 4 old guys, and they all sat in the church basement, and it just didn't seem like it was for me. And I made promise after promise like we do, and finally I agreed to go to see a psychiatrist because I was convinced it was an anxiety, depression type issue. And, obviously that didn't work. I would drink on my way to the psychiatrist and just sit there and lie to her. And things kept happening and popping up. And finally I agreed to go to an outpatient called Colmac in downtown D.C. And the first thing that Joan was my counselor, and she was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first thing she said to me was, you need to go start going to meetings. And I go, no, I'm going to this 2 hours every other day. This is plenty. And I managed to string together 6 months dry. I'm not going to say sober. I was dry. And I told this story the other day. And what I look like without Alcoholics Anonymous is very simple. I decided that at 6 months sober, I was going to open up a coffee shop / restaurant with a guy named, I'm not going to say his name, but
the story's going in a good direction here.
He approached me, and I decided that we were going to open this shop together, and I would have a small equity piece in it, and as chef, and we had a lot of press around us, the Washington Post and Eater, and I was doing okay. I was staying clean, I was doing my thing, and the night before press came in, we had a bartender, and she offered me a beer. And we didn't have customers yet. We weren't open. And I was like, I'll have one beer. And I remember drinking this beer, and I went home. I didn't stop at the liquor store. I went right to bed. I woke up next morning, and I was like, I'm cured. I don't have a drinking problem. You're all idiots.
Stories right out of the big book.
That's how it
And
goes.
I get up, and I go to work. By 11 o'clock that night, I'm in PIW, Psychiatric
Oh,
Institute of Washington.
The Nut House.
The Nut House.
The cops had to come remove me from the restaurant. I had a restraining order against me. I'm still not allowed in that particular business. It's still there today. And it was very embarrassing because my girlfriend at the time had to come and collect all my things, and it was very public. And I don't remember a lot of it, and
It's probably a good thing.
yeah. And with a few more things happened. I didn't get sober right then. I have one more little quick story. After that incident, I promised everyone that I was going to stop or at least try to control my drinking. So what I would do is I would hide vodka outside of our apartment building in the bushes or along this little stone wall on Connecticut and Porter Avenue in Cleveland Park. And I would go downstairs and smoke cigarettes, and I would hide this vodka. And, and I would go upstairs and try to act like a normal human being, like I was doing the thing. And one night I hid a nice bottle of a Stoli down there, and I hid it along this wall. And I go up, and I wake up at 6 o'clock like I do every morning at 6, shaking,
a little
sweating,
sweating,
Yep.
coughing up bile, thinking I'm going to die. And there's only one fix for that. So I stumble downstairs. I'm wearing size 15 Ugg boots. Paint you a little picture. I'm wearing gym shorts and a hoodie, and it had snowed about a foot.
Oh, man.
And I remember digging through the snow on the side of Connecticut Avenue, looking for this vodka, and I found it. And I sat there on the sidewalk, and I drank it, and I cried. Because it was at that moment I kind of knew this wasn't normal. I mean, there was a lot of other things happening before.
You could
that.
see yourself.
I could see myself. And
in that moment.
That image you have in your head of what an alcoholic looks like is that bum on the street you step over, you don't want anything to do with. And that was me. I'm 6 a.m., I'm crying, I'm drinking vodka. And, within days of that incident, there was, a few more incidents right around that time. And then one day I came home from the liquor store and my mother was standing in the apartment. And she's like, you have two choices. I found a homeless shelter in Anacostia, or I can take you to treatment. And I said, well, I don't think I'll survive in Anacostia. I get mouthy, you know? So I went to treatment. I went to treatment up at a place called Villa Veritas in Kerhonkson, New York, about 2 hours north of Manhattan. And, you know, it was probably, looking back on it, you know, it was the most terrifying experience. It was a union ran rehab center. So it was all NYPD and New York City Fire Department. I was let in as a favor to my family. So I was the only one there that wasn't like an iron worker for the union or a police officer. It was very strange.
Just a junkie chef.
Yeah, just a degenerate. And quickly, you don't understand how quickly you make friends in a place like that because you're all the same. You know, they're all going through all this stuff, and I'm still friends with 3 of the guys that I room with to this day. All of us are still sober. That's amazing. But that's when I got into.
It's amazing that they're sober.
Still sober,
I mean, to get out of a place like that and have anyone that's still sober is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And we still stay in contact. Not as much as we used to, but we still talk, you know, via social media here and there. And they were huge. You know, we got together and that was the first time I read the Big Book with a group of guys, was with this guy Chase and this other guy Mike. And it was incredible. And that was when I first got exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, every night at 8:30 they would bring a meeting in, or they rotated days with NA and then it was AA and things like that. And after a couple of weeks, I started to, you know, clear my head, started to feel better, and I started to get excited about this idea of sobriety, which I had never been before. But I was also terrified because I knew, you know, I'm going to leave here at some point and go back to DC, you know, and go back into this industry that's very tough. And I don't have any other skills at this point. You know, I'm 32 years old. I can't start programming computers. You know, I'm going to have to get back in the kitchen. And, you know, it was a terrifying experience. And I came up with a plan and I came back to DC and I started my 90-90, just like I promised my counselor I would do. And, you know, I wasn't doing it like we do it, like you guys do it. You know, at that time I was 10 minutes late, leave 10 minutes early, that kind of thing, until about
checking a box,
making sure my mom knew, making sure, you know, my girlfriend knew that I was doing this. And I was, you know, a month or so into this, and I was over it. I was like, this isn't for me.
Doesn't take long.
I mean, I was going to like the noon DuPont meeting. So, I mean, not a lot of young people, not a lot of excitement. You know, it was very random meetings I was hitting. And I had got a call from this guy, Ben, who I knew. And he said, I need to go to a meeting. Will you go to a meeting with me? And I said, Ben, I'm done with meetings. He's like, just go with me. I need someone. And I said, sure. So we go to the DC Young People's Monday night meeting on Vermont Avenue. I sit down and there's the guy speaking that night. When I sat down, I took one look at him and I go, this asshole. I mean, he blonde hair, combed to the side. I think he had on like purple pants and loafers. And, you know, he looked straight out of a Bethesda Country Club brochure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have zero in common.
You're not
with
far
this guy.
off.
I mean, we all know him. But he starts talking and he starts sharing his experience. And he starts, you know, I think we all know his story. It's a wild story. And you know, 10 minutes in, I was like, I like this guy. This guy partied the way I partied. This guy has done what I've done. And I put my hand up. I said I was new. And before the prayer was over, he made a V-line for me. You know, and what's your number? What are you doing tomorrow night? We're going to get tacos.
Got you wrapped up.
We're going to hit this place. And then Friday night, I'm going to pick you up at 5 o'clock. We're going down to this homeless shelter in Anacostia.
I mean, he had you at tacos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and he's like, but we'll be gone Friday night for 6.5 hours. We're going to Anacostia, and then we're doing dinner, and we're doing this. And I was like, this sounds like a nightmare.
Which is probably where you would have gone if you didn't go to treatment.
But it's where I spent every Friday night.
That's right.
Up until COVID, as much as I could. You know, that meeting became something very special. You know, we started taking guys out. to other meetings, and you develop relationships. And during COVID, my only human contact for the first part of COVID was with a homeless guy named Big Paul, who was he went to the Anacostia homeless shelter, and he lived at a halfway house down the street from me. And I would take him packs of Newports, and we would read the Big Book. But that was my only human contact besides my wife, and Tim quickly got me into the book. He didn't waste any time. We went through the steps, 4-step, 5th step, and he would do this thing that, because I was always one that I didn't connect with grown men. That was always a struggle for me, unless I was drinking. Having a serious conversation with another grown man or asking another man for help was terrifying. And Tim would take me to meetings, and he would leave early, and he would leave me there, and I would force me to ask for rides, and that saved my life. And he's done countless things that saved my life. I know, he can be a pain in the ass.
It was an unintentional benefit. He wasn't leaving to help you.
No. Well, who knows what he was doing? Who knows what goes through his mind on a given day? But he saved my life at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he got me plugged in, and I decided at a year sober that I was going to get back into the industry. I was working at a butcher shop with normal hours, and I decided I was going to get back into full-fledged, real kitchen. And that was tough. 90 hours a week running a kitchen in downtown DC. We won a few James Beard Awards, but I was miserable the whole time. 0 meetings, talk to my sponsor once a week maybe, and I was miserable. And I finally just came up with a plan. I didn't come up with a plan at all. I just told Tim, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I quit. And I just walked away with no job, no plan, no nothing. And I was lucky enough to fall into another role within the industry, on the analytics side of it, more of a consulting role, which, has changed my life. So,
and let's talk a little bit about what, now that you've got some years on your belt, you've worked through the steps. What are those relationships like? The relationships that you damage the most with your family and other people close to you?
My relationship with my family is completely changed. I was the guy you did not want coming to the 4th of July barbecue. Or I was the guy that had to have, someone's got to keep an eye on Matt tonight, or Christmas dinner. The Christmas I had the intervention, it was 11 a.m. before Christmas lunch with my aunt and uncle, and I was blacked out, and that was what I brought to the table. And I was able, with the amends process, I was able to repair those relationships. And now, just recently, we had a family member who tried to quit drinking, and he committed suicide. And I went into it, and people at the funeral and whatnot were leaning on me, which was very different. It felt a little weird. I'm like, are you sure I'm qualified to be talking to you about this? Because they were all like, you have experience with this, and my cousin still struggles with this. And they're like, why don't you talk to him at the funeral? And I'm like, that's not a great idea. Today's not the day. And it's not something I need to go out and pursue. If it's here, if he wants it. But, and my sponsor was very, very simple. I've had a few deaths in my family in the last year, and he's been very simple with my instructions when I call him and I'm upset. And he goes, what do you do at Haven on Thursday nights? And I go, I get there early. He goes, you get there early, you set up the chairs, you stay, you clean up. He goes, that's what you're going to do when you go to these funerals. You're going to get there early, you're going to help your aunts, you're going to help your uncles, your mom, and you're going to stay and you're going to do that. And that was his direction, which was huge. So most of the relationships I was able to repair. Even my ex-wife. It wasn't the ugliest of divorces, but it wasn't great. I pretty much left in a Cadillac and left her with everything, the bills and the house, and just went to New York. And we were younger, but we have a relationship now. We talk. We don't talk often, but she has kids and I have kids, and it's a very cordial thing. there was a girlfriend who, at 6 days sober, I wrote a letter to apologizing, and I got back a 4-page email about how I was a narcissist and drinking wasn't even close to my biggest problem, and that's kind of those things where you no sponsor direction. I'm just going to get out here and start getting this.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That was a newcomer tip of the week.
Yeah, it was a topic.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into this men's process before I do anything else. And, but there's some that, the business partner who I chased around the restaurant with a butcher knife. That relationship probably won't be repaired.
I mean, you hear about some amends with relationships, and obviously some are never repaired, and that's just the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about it other than try. But some relationships I've seen repaired in AA, I think to myself, only in AA could this have happened.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, no way ever could this ever be repaired other than by the work that we do in AA, the letters that get written, the showing up, time and time again. It's just like, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, my brother-in-law was about done with me. They lived in New York as well while I was up there, and I had a key to their house. And when they were at work, that's where I did my grocery shopping, my liquor shopping, and my banking. And he about had it with me, and the relationship that we have now is unbelievable. And it was a very simple conversation. I get all nervous about it because he's, it's another grown man being vulnerable with another grown man, and he was like, "Look, just be a good uncle, and I've made a little financial amends, and I try to do stuff here and there for him, but it was a very simple process and a very, huge relief."
We complicate it.
It's crazy complicated in our head.
We do, and it sounds like, per usual with our guests, that the steps work, and it is a very simple process. We just listen to the suggestions and the experience of other members of the program, and I'd love to hear more because I know there's a lot, but let's move on to the topic. Our topic this week, you kind of touched on it a little bit, is working in the restaurant industry in early sobriety. And I think I wanted to bring that up because it's something you did, and it's something that a lot of people go through, and it's a topic that is not really discussed. I think what you'll find on our meeting here is we're going to try to talk about some things that maybe people don't talk a lot about in meetings, which this is one of them. What is it like working in the restaurant industry? Or really, what's it like working around alcohol? You're newly sober. I know I had to do it, and I got out of it as quick as I could, but some people might not have that option. Some people might.
The transition to not. I mean,
that's exactly. That's another part is what is it, to get out of that. And there's a lot of fear there. And some people can't. Some people, that's their career, and they work in that environment, and they kind of work around that. What was your experience?
For me, I mean, working around that much alcohol and being involved in it was very difficult. It was very uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it wasn't. What I found that helped me was, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to do this, but this is what helped me, is when I took this job at this restaurant in DC, I was very honest with the owner of the restaurant. I was very honest on where I was doing it and what I was comfortable with doing.
And you had the luxury of doing that. Some people don't be able to.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
My biggest thing was the jealousy aspect of it. Was, we were at this. It was a beautiful restaurant. It was an open kitchen, and every night you're just seeing people coming in, drinking normally, or so to us. They're drinking normally. They're having expensive bottles of wine, and you get this jealousy, and that was it was driving me crazy.
Why can't I do that?
Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
Why can't I go out on a Saturday night and just have a glass of wine with a bowl of pasta? And people would ask me that, what happens if you have one? And I go, it gets bad. It gets bad real quick, and that's why I ended up stepping away from it. And where I am at now, I'm still in the restaurant industry, and a lot of retired chefs are in the same field, and it's been difficult, And
I think part of it is because I was, a part of it is the excitement.
Yeah,
it's the social outlet of it. You know what I mean? Because I didn't work in the restaurant industry, but I did do promotions for clubs, and I was in that environment for a decade. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It was all of the extracurricular stuff that happened around that, the friendships, the fast friendships, the acquaintances, all of the excitement around that is also hard to like let go, because you're like, I have no identity now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I don't have this, what's my identity? What am I going to do? Go work at Starbucks and be a barista? I mean, you're not going to do that.
No. I mean,
James Beard Award winner, and then you're serving up lattes. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, John. I'm not saying,
Hey, some of us have to do things that other people don't have to do, Starbucks is a great place to work.
I mean,
Nothing
I
wrong
think
nothing wrong with Starbucks.
Nothing wrong
Nothing
with working at Starbucks.
But I don't see Matt working at Starbucks.
no,
No,
definitely not.
but so and I guess that kind of is a good follow-up question. What are the fears surrounding leaving that industry? And if you have to stay in it, and when you were in it, this is a separate question. What did you do to help your sobriety? What did you do to kind of secure your sobriety?
I did nothing.
You did
that's
nothing.
why I wanted to put a gun in my mouth and blow my head off. Because if you're going to be in that industry, you have to have a strong program. And what I started off like we all do, gangbusters, and then the program quickly went away, and I didn't have an outlet, and I, and Tim would always get on me about, let's get a different meeting schedule. Let's talk to, the owner. Let's, work this out. And, I was running the whole place. So it was there was probably ways I could have done it. Do you know what I mean? But in my mind, it was impossible.
But it's a demanding job. I mean,
it is.
It's the hours are crazy.
Yeah.
It's just not conducive to,
It's
going to AA meetings.
Yeah,
unless
and
you're going to
it's-
6 a.m.s.
Yeah, you got to go to meetings. You got to stay plugged in. I wasn't plugged in at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like now I could probably go. I mean, I'm too old now to go back into it, but I feel like I'm in a better place spiritually to go back into it than I was then.
Yeah.
But you touched on it. It's the identity. That's my identity, and I've found that using, I do caterings and private parties where I'm able to still showcase and still have that passion. And now I have a different role where I help other restaurants and I'm involved with them. But it's tough.
Change is scary, and we all have to go through a lot of it if we're going to stay sober. And I think if you're new or you're not sure, just know that you don't have to go through it alone. I know that all of us here have gone through a lot of change in different areas, but we haven't had to do it alone. We've had other people we can talk to who have the experience, kind of like you have this experience, and we're able to reach out to those people and get guidance and get support within our network.
And there are restaurants now that are doing, there's recovery groups within restaurants. You can find them on Facebook. There's restaurant recovery, and they meet. They meet at more conducive times, 11 o'clock meetings and things like that.
That's great.
You're starting to see more and more of that pop up in the industry because the industry's been run rampant with like mental illness and addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing a lot more of that. You can find that stuff on Facebook.
Yeah. And you can listen to this podcast will be up. You can listen to the audio of this at any time. And there's plenty of other speakers that you can hear online if you're not able to get to a meeting and you're interested in hearing that. That being said, let's keep this thing moving along. I know we're getting a little short on time here, so we are going to get into the next segment we love here on the meeting after the meeting. This is the newcomer tip of the week.
It's good. It's good this week.
Let's go. We're I thought we had music, but we don't have music. We lost the music. God, it was so good. The music was. We'll get it back. We'll get it back next week. We never introduced our producer. I just looked over there and I saw his face of the disappointment on Gabe's face, our producer, for not having the music. What happened, Gabe?
What happened?
Well,
Hey, Gabe, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
So the slides were in the wrong order. So so I got a little mixed up. I was ready to do the sirens in the first and then the music on the second.
Yeah.
So when I had to do the little flippy floppy,
Okay.
things got a little bit mixed up.
So, but next week we'll have
next
music.
week, Maybe we'll prepare.
We'll prepare.
Maybe we'll
Flippy
prepare.
floppy, a
Maybe I'll get-
technical.
Yeah, it's
I
flippy
did like.
floppy.
Can you put up the picture of the newcomer again, real quick? I love the newcomer. What do you think? What are those glasses called, Chris?
I mean, those are some serious blades or
Yeah.
razors.
The neck tat is key.
The neck tat
Neck
is
tat.
key
Neck
for
tat
the
is
newcomer.
I love it.
And the knuckle tats.
The knuckle tats.
It reminds me of someone I know, but I won't say who.
It's a strong look.
See some good knuckle tats.
I love a good knuckle tat.
All right. Well, let's do this. So the newcomer tip of the week this week, if you're out there and you're wondering, another thing I'll say is you can contact us at I think it's tmatmlive at gmail.com. If you have a newcomer tip of the week or any questions, if you're new that you may be interested in us talking about on the show,
Or Linktree, TMATM.
or at our link tree, you can find us there too. This week, the tip is the steps are numbered for a reason.
Amen.
The steps are numbered for a reason. What does that mean? Chris, what does that mean to you?
Well, my sponsor said, any step with a 1 in it, I can do right away.
Really? I've never heard that before.
I've never heard that either.
That's
I like that.
interesting. I kind of like that. That's never.
Now that I think about it, it's true.
I mean,
Just pray, meditate, help other people, and
I mean, take your own inventory. I guess that's a good.
some of those things you got to start doing right out of the gate.
That's
Not all of us have any. We don't really have a runway, some of us.
any step with a 1 in it you can do right away. Okay. All
I'm
right.
sure you've never heard that?
Never heard that.
No way.
your sponsors
You?
are very seasoned.
Gabe, you ever heard that?
fella.
Yep.
You have?
I heard it in rehab, yeah.
Okay, in rehab. All right.
I don't know how you work the 12th step like right away, but
I'm not going to agree or disagree
hey,
with
if
it because
you-
I
if
know
you're in an
Chris's
AA
sponsor.
meeting-
If you're one day sober, there's a new guy coming in. You could
Look, if you're in
put
an
your hand
AA
out.
meeting, you're setting up chairs. That's helpful.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah.
sure, yeah.
It's interesting. I like that.
it's better than doing the nice step right out of the gate.
100%, which we know that doesn't work. So, what about you, Matt? The steps are numbered for a reason. What was your experience? Did you go through the steps in order?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through the steps in order. And like I said, I mean, fresh out of rehab, starting my 90 and 90 unsponsored, I started to do some 9-step, like I think I talked about briefly. I wrote a nice letter to a young lady who I dated. I did a
Disaster.
This is the worst. This is the worst.
and it came back pretty bad. It came back in email form, and it was long, and it was the header was drinking was the least of your problems, and then she went into like a really good,
She doesn't know how right she was, though.
looking back on it, she doesn't,
She nailed it because that's the truth.
and I was a mess. I mean, we're going to get into that. This is a family show, but
It's actually true. We come in here and we think that gosh, if we just would have stopped drinking, then we find out that we got a living problem.
Whoa.
In general, we got a living problem. I am
Selfish,
selfish,
self-centered,
self-centered. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to step on your toes. I'm going to take what I, want to take to get what I want.
yeah, 100%. And I was lucky, with the sponsor that I had and how he took me through the steps and how, he does it a little differently than some other. I think every pigeon family might do it a little differently, and we went through it in a very.
Hopefully
easy-
you're doing it out of the book. But
Yeah, but it's it's almost like out of the book and then like dumbed down for like idiots like me.
your sponsor he doesn't look like a
Well, I think it was dumbed
worksheet.
down for him.
He's not giving you any worksheets.
No,
You ever
No.
do any worksheets?
no, it was a green notebook, and it always had to be a green notebook.
And in the book, it says that you got your eighth, you got your 8th step from writing your 4th step. So how could you not do those steps in order? How are you going to get to the 8th step without doing the 4th step?
Yeah,
How are you going to make a decision in the 3rd step to turn your will over to this power if you haven't done the 2nd step where you come to believe in this power?
This is what I'm trying to figure out. Who is that enterprising in AA that you want to fast forward? I mean, it's not like I don't want to do any steps.
yeah,
Certainly not ones that I have, that
The only step I wanted to do ahead of time was I wanted everybody to stop being mad at me.
That's it.
And then I'll get into whatever else.
I mean, who's trying to fast forward? I mean,
I think that's honestly what we're hammering on here, and that's the step that the people who are trying to fast forward are the ones who want to reach back to their ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, and they either want to try to get back with them, or they want to relieve this guilt that they have without putting in any work,
or they think that there's some sort of like key here to unlock sobriety. I mean, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no graduating just because you finished all 12 steps. I mean,
no, you go back through them and do them again.
Yeah. I mean, this is a way of life. You know, it has to be.
The steps, for me, the steps have evolved. They've all been different as I go through them. You know, what my third step looked like 6 years ago and what it looks like now. I mean, now it's a daily step. You know, and it's something my sponsor and I talk about a lot. It's like we have to turn our wheel over every day, or I'm going to go nuts. You know, so
I think that to wrap this up and we'll move on is just to realize, like you said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not really anywhere to get to here. So no rush, no need to, power through these things so you can graduate or be done. This is a lifelong thing. So take your time, do it right.
Except for the 4th and 5th. You need to get those done.
Well, you want to get it done. You definitely want to get that done. No, we're not into a step a year around here.
No.
We're not doing a step a year. So with that being said, I think that's a good topic. If you're new, steps are numbered for a reason. We're going to get into our sketch of the week. This week's sketch is called We Found It Online.
It's not as scary as you think.
It's not. It's not as scary as you think, but it is interesting. And I think this is interesting because over the past, I don't know how long it's been, I've seen some weird stuff that people will get courtesy of private or whatever websites.
Just go to a world convention.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all. So basically, the premise behind this is we're going to show you a couple fun AA things you can buy online, and we want to see what you think about them. So, Matt, we want to get your opinion too. So we've got 3 different items here. We found these online courtesy of a website. We won't put that website up there, and know that this is all fun. We're not trying to be mean here. We're poking a little bit maybe.
We got that first one.
First one is AA sobriety candy bars. Ooh, what do you?
I love this. I'm going to buy Justin one.
Have you ever gotten an AA sobriety candy bar for your anniversary? Anybody? No. Gabe?
No. For my 1 year? No.
You didn't?
No.
It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Happy 14 years. What's the quote say? I can't. That's a very low res pick on this.
Oh my! Actually,
Regina,
you know what?
I think it says a name, Regina.
Yeah, it says Regina. You are my super sponsor. That's amazing. So you can get them customized.
First of all, no one I sponsor has ever given me anything but grief and heartburn.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? No fancy chips, no big book. You know how you see some sponsors.
I got that.
Yeah, they give them like a book.
I got a custom big book with my sobriety date, my name stitched into the cover.
Doing something wrong, Chris.
What's going on with your guys, man?
They're bums.
They're bums.
They're bums.
They're bums. Some of them might be listening right now.
Yeah, I mean,
get
and
Chris
it's not like they can't afford
big book.
They can't. It's not like they can't afford it.
They can.
Some of these guys doing quite well now. You know what I mean?
Either way, I know this. Newcomers love chocolate. So, chocolate is a great replacement.
Some more than others.
For alcohol, the sugar and alcohol. Yeah. That's a good one. If you're with a newcomer and they're struggling, chocolate doesn't hurt.
No. So, it's a good gift.
All right, let's move on to the second item. I don't know if this one's my favorite, but I love it. We're going to call these the God dice. God dice. Every side of these dice, no matter how you roll these dice, God's dice are always loaded.
I want to know how to gamble with it.
I'm rolling double God.
These are very odd.
What would you? So my question is this: what would you use these for? The only thing I could think of is maybe you're sitting with a newcomer and he's maybe struggling, and you're like, "Let me show you something." And you pull out the dice, and you're like, "You know who's always there?"
Yeah, you don't even say anything. He says, "Man, I can't pay rent. I got fired from my job," and you just
Hold on a second. Let me show you what kind of luck.
On the table.
Let me show you what kind of luck you got. God, double God.
Double God.
Double God.
He's probably got a gambling problem too, and you send him back to the casino that night afterward. He's starting to shake. He's like, man, I'm going to play some cards now.
Those are ridiculous.
I love them.
How much were they?
Yeah, that's.
I don't know if there was a price on them, but
Oh, there was definitely a price. Oh,
it's covered up. Well, $4.95.
$4.95.
Is that the shipping? No.
$4.95.
All I know is you save $1,
I mean, they can't be expensive. It's probably $4.95.
and they can gift wrap it.
And they can gift wrapped it. I
That's
love
what I'm
it.
getting Gabe first 2 year.
God's
love it.
dice are always loaded.
Always loaded.
Ridiculous.
Let's go to the last one, my favorite.
This is the
AA
worst.
license plate frames.
This is terrible.
This is terrible.
This is what it is great
Nope.
because
The way I drive, you definitely don't want anything, nothing AA related on my car.
we
Trust
had
me.
a buddy. We had a buddy. I won't say his name when when we were getting sober who had a AA license plate, not just the frame. And it,
Like
I think
a-
it said Easy Does It.
Yeah.
Like a vanity plate?
A vanity plate. Yeah. What did tell Gabe? Gabe, what did it say?
Into action.
Into action?
Wow.
I could have swore it said Easy Does It, but
That could have a lot of different meanings, though.
point is when you're ripping around sometimes, and I'm not saying I'm not breaking the law all day every day, but sometimes I'm speeding, sometimes I'm making moves I probably shouldn't make. You definitely don't want, the AA triangle on the back of my car on a bumper sticker.
Looks like AA is really working for that guy.
Yeah, you definitely.
Just screamed at me.
One of my favorite stories. I forget
Gave me the finger.
who tells this story about going to a job interview. I don't know if it was Johnny or somebody. Tell a story about going into he's going to sell a client. He walks into the parking lot and he knows he's meeting with the CEO and he sees a car parked in the CEO spot and it's got a bumper sticker on the back for AA. And he's like, I'm golden, man. If I just bring up AA to this guy, I'm going to get this deal, And then he goes in and he's thinking about the traditions and principles. He's like, it's probably not a good idea if I bring it up. And somehow it comes up in conversation. Now, oh, look, that was a nice car out there. And the guy says, oh, that's my wife's effing car. She left me for some bum in AA. And he's like,
Johnny,
man,
yeah,
he's like,
that's
if I had
Johnny's
mentioned, good thing I didn't mention the AA bumper sticker,
He would have been.
You never know.
He would have been ushered out.
You just
quickly.
You never know. So I think this is the AA vanity plate is probably a no-go. The AA license plate frame, just make sure if you're going to get it that you're following the law.
I mean, I get this stuff if like you're new because you get all pumped for AA when you're new,
Yeah.
but now you're like,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm very proud of
I
my
love
sobriety,
that,
but
yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to put it on my
No.
license plate.
Look, this is just the beginning. I mean,
I've seen some wild stuff.
there's a
out there.
lot of products that we're going to cover.
This is not the last time we're going to use We Found It Online as a sketch, so be ready for some fun stuff. And again, hit us up on Linktree, hit us up at our Gmail.
Yeah.
If you find some interesting products,
it.
or maybe
Send it.
you own an interesting product and you feel comfortable taking a picture of it,
Yeah.
or maybe of yourself with it.
I know
you
you
want to
gotta-
send it
I know
in
a guy.
I know you got a gold chain somewhere or a ring.
with somebody who's got the.
I know somebody who's probably got some wild AA shit.
Pinky
Love it.
rings.
Love it. Let's see what we can find. So we'll definitely come back with that sketch, and we are coming up on the hour here. We're running out of time. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Your story it's a very powerful one. You've been a great friend and a good member of AA that we've known, and we are happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how this kind of unfolds and grows. I think this is going to be huge for everybody in the area and people that aren't in the area. I mean, I know we've had some people that have moved away that, this will help connect them back in,
Yeah,
Or it could be a total failure.
maybe.
Yeah, you never know.
Maybe.
you don't. But we're going to give it our best shot. And look, after tonight, we're going to be putting up all the first 3 episodes are going to be on all streaming podcast platforms. You can find those there. We're going to be back next week with another great episode of The Meeting After the Meeting. And we are excited and we hope you're there. We're going to have a great new guest for you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Gabe.